The bragging rights in the West London derby went to Fulham, who make it 2 wins on the bounce in the Premier League. This is how it's happened. Marco Silva stayed unchanged from the win over Leeds United. Samuel Chukwueze made an appearance on what was a very strong-looking Fulham bench, and very attacking with 6 of the 9 possible subs being attacking-minded. Luckily, we didn't have to rely on our subs this time around to get a result. No Anthony Robinson named in the squad, however, which could be a concern. Kevin's still waiting for his first Fulham start. And despite the occasional threats from set pieces for Brentford, Fulham were on top in the early exchanges. However, it was Brentford who took the lead through a mistake from Josh King, and there's no sugarcoating needed here. It's a poor pass and Brentford capitalised on it, and it's a mistake that he's going to be able to learn off. But the fact that Josh King is in that position in the first place shows just how much faith Marco Silva has in him, because he's an integral part of how we play out from the back. The opposition striker or strikers, in this case Igor Thiago and Kevin Schade, would usually be on the centre-backs, hoping to force Leno to go long, or if it was just one striker, to force play down a particular side. And so it opens up this space in the middle of the pitch, around 25 to 30 yards away from our own goal, which in this case Josh King can come into and drop deep. We saw it last week with Emil Smith-Rowe when he came on against Leeds United. And from this position, if he's under no pressure, he can either turn and look to get us up the pitch this way, or he can attract one of the Brentford midfielders to press and break up the Brentford structure, which out of possession is usually quite flat as a 5-3-2. This would give space for the player on the opposite flank to come into, which gives us another option in the middle of the pitch, which means Muniz doesn't have to drop deep as often, and so we don't have a situation like Brighton away in our first match of the season, where we struggled to create because Raul dropped so deep. And so the person receiving the ball would then give it to the fullback, which is the ultimate aim, to get the ball out wide, which, as mentioned before, is how we like to focus our attacks. And so if it all goes to plan, A, we're out of danger playing in our own third, and B, we've got these triangles here being Sasha Lukic, Kenny Tete and Harry Wilson to try and play around the Brentford team and create an attack. It also gives a lot of space for the opposite fullback, in this case Ryan Sessegnon, who has the entirety of the left-hand side to himself, and we know how dangerous he can be in attack even from left-back, as we saw with the Ethan Pinnock own goal. But sometimes there are going to be mistakes made like this one from Josh King, but it's all about the reaction from that. Alex Iwobi and Rodrigo Muniz instantly went over to him, and King bounced back, and it was a brilliant response from him. Not easy to do in a big match like against Brentford, and thankfully in the end didn't have an impact on the final result. Now, if you've been watching all my videos from this season, you would notice how I like to have different talking points and focus on different players each week, but it's difficult to do that when you put in a superb performance and one worthy of the man of the match like Alex Iwobi. We've talked about how Iwobi still is an important player for Marco Silva, even if he hasn't contributed as much as he probably should have in terms of goals and assists this calendar year, and how with Kevin coming in on the left wing, maybe his future for Fulham is in the centre of midfield. But his performance against Brentford was just like one of his performances from the first half of last season, where he was one of, if not our best player during that period. His goal to get us level is a pure instinctive finish, albeit a bit scrappy, and his assist for Harry Wilson's goal just 98 seconds later was absolutely sublime. It's the perfect weight to get it in between Vandenberg and Pinnock, and the finish from Wilson is just as good. Because he takes it early, it catches Kelleher off guard, who, by the way, has looked far from convincing so far for Brentford. And if there was going to be someone to score, it was going to be Harry Wilson. 4 goals in his last 3 games against Brentford, and hopefully he'll sign a new contract, because outside of Kevin and Chukwueze, I have Wilson as our most technically gifted player. His versatility of being able to play centrally and out wide can be important at times for us, and as he's shown, he knows where the net is at the end of the day. Ryan Sessegnon had a good performance also, and whilst I'd still much prefer to have Anthony Robinson at left back, Sessegnon has gotten so much better in that position, and I have so much more confidence in him defensively than I did this time last year. It's going to be very harsh on Sessegnon when Robinson does get back to full fitness, but it would mean that we could see Sessegnon back to being played higher up the pitch, even if his minutes there are also going to be reduced with the additions of Kevin and Chukwueze. And let's talk about the entirety of the squad. Even if we didn't need to rely on our subs yesterday, we were that comfortable. But this squad, it might just be the strongest Fulham squad ever. Is it ridiculous to say that? Because you look at who came on. Kevin, I mean, we're all excited by what he can do. Jorge Cuenca was the standout when he came on, and I have no worries about him when he comes in for Calvin Bassey, who goes off for AFCON in January. Raul Jimenez, even if he might be on the decline, and Rodrigo Muniz looks to have taken his starting spot, which I guess was the ultimate goal, is still performing at a decent Premier League level. And then you look at who didn't come on, Chukwueze, and then you look even beyond that, Jonah Kusiasade, not even in the squad, and he's a highly rated striker even by Bayern Munich, his parent club. And Anthony Robinson, who wasn't even in the squad, but hopefully he will be back soon. Then you have a look at all the youth players as well who are knocking on the door. Luke de Fougerols, who I feel will be integrated into the squad next season. Aaron Lopalo-Bai, who signed a new contract yesterday. And Seth Ridgen, who all Fulham fans are excited about. Final thoughts on the match then, and we totally deserve the win. Strange management from Keith Andrews, but as always, Fulham are on top against Brentford. And just like that, before the international break, we were in the relegation zone, and 2 game weeks later, we find ourselves in the Conference League place. Still a lot of football to be played, however, but is Europe something that we should be targeting and maybe even expecting with how strong our squad is now? In midweek, we progressed to the next round of the Carabao Cup with a win over Cambridge United. I thought we were comfortable throughout, which is what you expect, given we're a Premier League side against a League 2 side, but there was no point where I thought there would be an upset, especially with how solid Jorge Cuenca and Issa Diop was. We had a lot of the ball and faced no shots on target. However, it was our attack where we struggled, and when you're playing a lower league team who have that physical side of the game over you, the last thing you'd want to do is put crosses into the box, but that seemed the only way we created chances. But you know the game is boring when the only form of entertainment really was when the referee Ruben Ricardo struggled to pop a balloon that made its way onto the pitch from the away end. As far as I'm concerned though, we're through to the next round and that's all that matters, and it will be Wickham who we face in round 4. A very favourable draw and should be a routine win for us to get us into the quarterfinals. There's a lot of Premier League draws that will see high-profile Premier League teams drop out. Next up in the Premier League is Aston Villa, who've struggled so far this season, but we definitely have a hoodoo when it comes to playing Aston Villa at Villa Park, and even more of a hoodoo when it comes to playing an Unai Emery side, where we failed to even draw in all of our 7 matches. We have a couple days rest over Villa, who played against Bologna in the Europa League on Thursday, but it will still be a very tough match. The only concern injury-wise for Fulham is Kevin, who suffered a shoulder injury in midweek. But to be fair, with how Iwobi played against Brentford, I have no problem with him starting. And I do think this is one of the games where we should be playing that pivot of Sander Berge and Sasha Lukic. I think I would stay unchanged from the Brentford match. Anthony Robinson and Raul Jimenez, who are toss-ups for me to start before the Cambridge match, showed nothing in that game to say that they should start over Sessegnon and Muniz. I'm going to say we're finally going to beat the curse and win 2-1 with goals from Muniz and Chukwueze off the bench. But let me know your predictions for the match and your opinions on the Brentford and Cambridge games. As always, follow me on all my socials, stay safe and thanks for watching.